The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of 1980s science fiction camp. So get your spaceships ready, nerds, because we're talking shitty space movies. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your fill-in host, Matthew Kadish, taking Alex's seat because he's away for his 10th anniversary celebration. He took his wife out to a very nice trip to celebrate 10 years and 3 kids together. So today we chose some movies that we knew he was going to hate and wasn't going to miss. But with me, as always, to talk about these shitty space movies is my wonderful panel of nerds, starting with the one and only beautiful, gorgeous Matt Vader 74. How are you doing, buddy?
Hello. I'm taking a little bit of offense to your shitty space movies description.
Well, that's what we named it
because
when we scheduled
one of these
this.
movies is not a shitty space movie. The two you picked are.
I would argue none of these are actually shitty space movies. But getting to it, the lovely ambassador of estrogen, Juju, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
You excited to talk about these things?
I am.
Yeah, which one is the one you're most excited to talk about?
Well, I picked Ice Pirates, so that's my baby.
And in the host seat today, who's not hosting, but he's filling in, is the one and only Dork Knight himself, Danny Ballard. Danny, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, when was the last time?
About a year.
Yeah.
Were we sitting over on the coffee table? In the
No, we were still here because we did Star Wars.
The last one
Okay.
I was here, but I was over there and there weren't all these cameras.
Wasn't as many wires
Yeah.
poking around everywhere.
Yeah, we weren't on YouTube last time Danny was
That's
on
true.
the show.
Yeah.
But he was kind enough to fill in for Alex. And we're going to have a lot of movies to talk about today. So the first movie up is going to be Ice Pirates, which is a 1984 classic starring Robert Ulrich.
Urich.
Whatever. and then we're going to be talking about the Roger Corman classic Battle Beyond the Stars, which I'm really excited to talk about. And then we're going to round out this episode by talking about the Netflix original film Space Sweepers, which is a Korean science fiction epic.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff. But before we do, let's hear a word from these sponsors. Hey everyone, welcome back. And before we get going, I just wanted to point out that you can get all types of cool behind the scenes video and other benefits by going to saltynerdclub.com, which will take you to our Patreon page. We're trying to, Jesus Christ, Vader.
Every time.
Every time. We're trying to get to 100 patrons so that our ultimate goal is that Vader can quit his job and basically do the podcast full time. So this is what your Patreon patronage goes towards. And Vader is actually in charge of the Patreon, so he'll be sending out behind the scenes photos and welcome packages and all types of fun stuff. So just go to saltynerdclub.com if you want to help support the podcast. We really appreciate it. And before we get going, I'd also like to remind everyone to give us a thumbs up on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, to leave us a review, give us a couple stars, and let everyone know what you think. We always appreciate that. And it's a great way to kind of support the podcast without shelling out money. All right.
We like money.
Yes, we
We
do
need
like
money.
money.
I mean, our first choice is money.
Yeah. All right.
us the monies.
So Jude,
Yes,
tell us about Ice Pirates.
you got it. 1984 Ice Pirates, rated PG, if you can believe it, with a runtime of 1 hour, 31 minutes. This had a budget of $9 million. What do you think it brought in?
Danny?
Oh, I have no idea.
1984 money.
I'd like to think it was profitable. I enjoyed it. So 20?
Okay. V?
That's what I was going to say, like 20, 25.
Okay. Close enough. $14 million. So, yeah, almost doubled its budget.
Okay.
But not quite. I guess that's why we didn't get an Ice Pirates 2.
I think there are lots of reasons why, which we'll get into in a bit.
All right, so here's the synopsis. In the future, water is the most valuable substance. A pirate gang made up of Robert Urich, Angelica Huston, and Ron Pearlman set upon a ship to steal its ice, but are captured and sold to Princess Karina, who's on a mission of her own. She's trying to track down her father and needs the pirates' help in navigating through a world where being a royal could get you killed.
So I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. I enjoyed
This
it.
was the first watch
far-
for you,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I enjoyed it far
Oh,
more than
wow.
I thought I would. I'd never seen this before, and in fact, I think we watched a Red Letter Media review on this movie, which is what inspired you to make me want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was surprisingly entertaining. I really enjoyed it. Let's go around the table and get our first impressions. Danny, what did you think of Ice Pirates?
Well, this movie has always been a guilty pleasure of mine. My mom is really when I was younger, she loved getting like B, sci-fi movies. She'd go to like Blockbuster and like get the most obscure stuff, and that's how I first came across this. Is she rented it when I was pretty young. I'm surprised it is only PG. I guess it was age appropriate, but I always remember loving it. So when you texted me about the movies, I was like, oh man, yes.
Right?
I haven't seen this movie in 30 years. So so I was really excited about it. And I don't know, I thought it still holds up for me anyway,
Yeah. So Vader, what did you think of Ice Pirates?
So I'm not sure if this was a first watch for me, but it felt like a first watch.
Okay.
Because I really don't remember ever watching this before, but I can't imagine not have seen it at some point.
Feels like the first time
But
every time.
Yeah. So what do I have to say about this movie? The cast, that was the first thing I noticed about this movie, was like with all these names sort of flashing across the bottom of the page. And I'm like, holy crap.
Right?
This is some A-list stuff, which just kind of pissed me off the longer and farther I kind of got into this movie, because this movie is atrocious. It's utter garbage. I don't even know what else to say.
You're such a snob.
No, it's a fun movie. Don't get me wrong, but it's bad. It's bad, man. But it's like kind of good bad.
Yeah, it's so bad it's good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's not like the other movie we watched today where I had to like fast forward through the last 20 minutes. I didn't do that with this movie. So it's fun. I had a good time with this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting about it. So
All right, so Jude, this was your pick for this week. Why don't you tell us what you thought about Ice Pirates?
Well, this is just right up my alley. Like, much like Danny's mom, I'm very into the campy 80s awesomely bad movies. And like I was raised on USA Up All Night, and this is just like one of those movies that they would play. And it's got everything. It's got like Sleeping Beauty. We are introduced to the princess. She's like literally in a foggy capsule, and she looks like Sleeping Beauty. And then
And that's the scene where the pirate laments that they don't rape anymore.
yeah,
thanks for doing my
as
job.
he's trying to look at her boob.
Remember, this is a PG rated movie too.
So,
Anyway, so back to my joke. She's Sleeping Beauty, and then our prince, who is Robert Urich, he's a pirate, and he comes up and he's upset that he can't rape her. So we get the rape jokes and robots, and we get space herpes. It's got everything.
When the Space Herpes showed up, I was like, that's where this comes from. Because
It's full circle moment for you.
yeah.
Oh, and you had to love the scene in the beginning with the alien on the commode. That was just
Yeah,
like everybody
yeah.
walking
we've got
right by.
time travel. It's got everything.
yeah, time travel, aliens pooping, space herpes. But, I mean, how can you not like this movie, right?
Yeah.
It's also got the most ridiculous robot fights I think I've ever seen in a movie. The robots in this film are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
So, fun fact. So Robert Urich,
Urich.
Robert Urich from Spenser for Hire stars in this movie. And originally it was going to be Kevin Costner in the role of Jason,
man.
but he wisely turned this one down.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, and it went to Robert. But this was supposed to be like a big budget science fiction movie from MGM originally, and it was going to have a $20 million budget. And in the development phase, MGM was like, we don't want to spend that much money on this, so they slashed the budget to $8 million. And in doing so, they couldn't do like half the stuff that they wanted to, or had planned to do for this movie. So they were like, you know what, we're going to rewrite this movie and make it into a comedy. And so that's
Great choice.
yeah, that's how we got Ice Pirates. So let me just ask you guys, Danny, what was your favorite moment in this movie?
Oh, probably at the end where where they come back. It's like his dad, but it's not. You know what I mean?
So
The time travel
you're
stuff?
talking about at a certain point towards the end of the movie, in order to get to the 7th planet that they've been searching for the whole movie,
Yeah.
you have to go through a time warp. And while they're going through this time warp, every minute that passes is like a day to them. And so like they age, all the main cast members age. And eventually Robert Urich's son
Very good.
gets to be a grown adult, and he's like this decrepit old man, and
Yeah.
the son
Yeah.
has to come and save the day. And it's played by Robert
Yeah,
Urich.
played by the same actor.
Yeah.
So I just remember loving that so much as a kid because I was like, oh, but like, because kids are stupid,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and I was a stupid kid. And I was like, oh, wow, it's like the same guy. That's his son. And now I look like my dad. So
He looks just like him.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because the story for this, as Jude kind of talked about, was that in the future, basically there was this big war, and all the planets that had water on them were destroyed. And so basically water is the most valuable resource in the galaxy. And there's a lot of ice in space. So basically you have this consortium called the Paladins, which is like the governing body of the universe. And they're the ones who go out and basically mine ice from space to turn into water. And the ice pirates are basically just, pirates that go around and hijacking
Exactly what it sounds like.
these ships in order to steal the ice so that they can sell the water, because water's more valuable than gold or money or like whatever. So in this adventure, basically the princess that they come across, her father discovered the mythical 7th water planet that supposedly still exists. It was not destroyed in the war. And so she's trying to find her father, and the pirates that she's teamed up with want to find this planet for the water. And while they're going on this quest to find her father, the evil paladins are chasing them, and they want to find this planet too, so that they can control all the water and not let these pirates ruin their economy by basically telling everyone, hey, you don't have to subsist in space anymore. You can come to this planet. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the basic gist of this movie, but it's filled with all types of wacky stuff. Jude, what's the wackiest thing in this movie?
Oh, the space herpes, for sure.
Can you explain what the space herpes is?
I forget, did they hijack a ship? And
So it's the princess's ship, I think.
Okay. And I think they like stumble upon some boxes, and something falls out of a box, and he's like, oh, what was that? And then everybody's like, oh, you're just crazy. And then the one guy is sleeping, and he wakes up to feel like something is sucking on him. And he wakes up and he asks Robert Urich, like, did you put something on me? And he's like, no, man, you're crazy. You're just dreaming. And he turns around. There's like a giant, like
Space
as
slug.
big as my head worm is like sucking on the back of them. And they're like, oh, shit. And they look at the inventory list. They're like, oh, the ship's got space herpes. And it's just like this thing that keeps coming up throughout the movie. Like the space herpes just kind of wiggles through the room, and they're like, oh, everybody get back. It's space herpes.
Yeah, and it never really pays off.
No, but it's just the joke that keeps coming up throughout the movie, and it's hilarious.
So basically, the princess's ship that she commandeered had a bunch of stuff in their kind of cargo bay, I guess, or just stuff that they were carrying that were like relics, like valuable things. And one of them was like a space herpes egg, but they didn't know what was in the space herpes egg. They thought it was kind of dormant, and so it was mostly like just kind of like for show. And when it fell out of the closet, it kind of like
it hatched.
it hatched. And so like you have this weird space slug just kind of like randomly showing up throughout the movie and freaking everyone out. And it's, I mean, like, who sits there and is like, space herpes?
Yeah,
Let's
it's just
include
good,
that.
clean fun.
Clean fun.
Yeah. So Vader, what do you think was the wackiest part of this movie?
I thought the costumes and stuff and design of this movie were just completely bonkers. I felt like I was watching like a movie where they went and raided like a Monty Python set. And they like stole all their stuff from the Holy Grail movie or something like that. It kind of was. I was wondering what they were kind of going for, because it was very medieval with their chainmail and their shoulder pads and their armor and stuff. And it was weird, but kind of cool. You know what I mean? That kind of like made me scratch my head through the whole movie. Like, like, man, what is with the armor? It's really strange.
Yeah, the whole movie gives you like what the hell energy through the whole thing.
Yeah, because they are dressed like
But
Pirates of the Caribbean.
I was really impressed with Angelica Huston's outfit.
Yeah.
You know, she she's
gorgeous.
She's Morticia to me.
She looks like a badass.
Yeah. So it's just bonkers costume design and just, I don't know. It's just watching these old movies or they're just kind of the way they did the spaceship effects and everything back then, and knowing that Star Wars came out years before this, and they made this look terrible.
The robots are hilarious.
Yeah.
To the robots kung fu fighting and stuff. Yeah, it's great. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because like throughout the movie, like they basically use the robots as like cannon fodder. Mm-hmm. They do like they're butlers and servants, and they're also like like the things that board the ships and kind of like are on the front lines. And one of the robots throughout the movie is very cowardly, and they keep pushing him into like dangerous situations. And at one point, he literally shits himself, like on the like just a bunch of oil and nuts and bolts just fall onto the floor. I mean, it's incredible. And at one point, Roscoe, who's like the second in command to Robert Urich's character, he's making a new robot, or he's repairing a robot, and Robert Urich's there, and he's like, I gotta ask, man, why are you making this robot black? And Roscoe replies, because I want him to be perfect. I thought that was very funny. My favorite wacky moment in this movie is when basically they run into another character. His name's Killjoy, and he's played by John Matuszak, who played Chunk in The Goonies.
Oh.
And he was like a former football player.
Didn't play Chunk in The Goonies.
Yeah, he did.
No way.
No, he did not.
He certainly did.
He most certainly did not.
I will bet you $100.
Okay.
You mean Truffle Shuffle Chunk?
I'm sorry. I meant Sloth.
Sloth.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess
there you go.
Sloth love Chunk.
Yeah, sorry. I got those two confused.
What does he owe me, Jude? What does he owe me?
I didn't see you guys shake on it, so
$100?
it's not binding.
Whatever. I don't care what it is.
We
he
recorded
owes
it.
me something.
His woman?
You can have her, Vader.
I got to get rid of the one I have
easy.
now. It's first. So,
but John Matuszak, he played Sloth in The Goonies. And so him and Roscoe are kind of escaping from this planet where they were going to be castrated and sold into slavery. And on their way to kind of like get out of this place, they run into a pimp robot, or pimp bot for short.
I forgot about him.
And he comes rolling up and he's like,
"Hey, bloods, y'all want to pump some kitties?"
yeah.
And they're just like, yeah. And so like
I could look at some titties. We have time?
Yeah. So they go with this pimp bot who's speaking like, like a gang member or something like that. And they get in the car and they get away. But when that scene came up, I laughed so hard. That was probably my favorite moment in the whole movie.
There's another goofy moment that you just reminded me of, is when they're on the conveyor belt and they get the pretend castration. So they originally, when they are hijacking this ship and trying to steal all of the ice, they get captured by the authorities and sold into slavery. And they just put all of these men on conveyor belts, and they're on the conveyor belts, like slowly going through, and they're being shaved, and they're being primped, and they're putting like white wigs on them, like old timey. And then there's this like giant chomping device, and it looks just like teeth, and it's coming at their dicks. And then all of a sudden it goes away, and then the princess is standing there, and she goes, "Just pretend."
Yeah, the princess basically saves the pirates from being castrated and turned into slaves.
And it's a total like pretend castration. Like we're gonna put you through a simulation of it, and now you're castrated. And like for like the next 20 minutes in the movie, they talk like this.
So a while back we reviewed Logan's Run, right? Mm-hmm. And this movie actually, because it was an MGM movie, they use a lot of the same sets and props from Logan's Run in it. So like all the cars were from Logan's Run. The Dome City set was from Logan's Run.
Oh, wow.
All that
I
stuff.
didn't catch that.
Yeah. So MGM was very good at reusing stuff for their for their science fiction movies.
Save a little money that way.
Just a little bit. So, Danny, was there any part of this movie that you just didn't like or thought was really dumb?
Well, those are two completely different things, Kadish.
This is true.
No, it was like a time machine for me. You know, like watching this was like, you know, going back in time and made me realize that my mom let me watch a lot of weird shit she probably shouldn't have at a very young age, which shaped my warped sense of humor. So it wasn't. No, I wouldn't say there was anything I. You know, I'm easy. Like when we talk about the next movie, I'll be a little bit more vocal with my criticisms. I fucking hated that movie.
All right, so let's talk about the cast of this movie, because I think this is probably one of the more interesting aspects of it. Vader, you kind of mentioned this previously, but this was the second movie that Ron Perlman ever made, and I think it was also the second movie that Angelica Huston ever appeared in. So looking back now at like the actors in this film, what do you think about the cast?
Oh, it's a stellar cast.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these actors, for the most part, went on and made just some really incredible movies and had great careers. You know, I mean, on TV or in the theaters. I mean, it's really a good cast.
So this was only Ron Perlman's second movie?
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess
wow.
so. But,
And it's kind of funny because like he gets his hand cut off in this movie, and then like they just like reattach it, and it's like no
They
big
do.
deal.
I
They
just-
follow through with that joke.
I just remember watching the credits roll at the beginning, and I'm like, "What? Get out of here!" You know, it was wild. It was just like all these people were in this stupid little early '80s sci-fi movie, and they were all kind of like at the start of their careers, probably scraping for a paycheck, and this thing comes along, and yeah, it was fascinating, to be honest. It was really cool.
So there's actually a rumor that Max von Sydow, you know, this legendary German actor, he was in The Force Awakens and a bunch of other stuff.
Flash Gordon.
Yeah, Flash Gordon. He was Ming the Merciless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Merciless.
So there were rumors that he was actually one of the mercenaries in that Mad Max style interlude where they're, you know, they're in the desert and all of a sudden these pirates show up at Lanky Nibs, kind of like camp.
Lanky Nibs.
Yeah,
That's
Lanky
my
Nibs.
favorite thing.
And supposedly Max von Sydow is one of these marauders that's on like this huge kind of like
Weird ass skull car.
yeah,
thing.
yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's certainly rumored that he was just like this nameless, uncredited extra in this scene. Jude, what did you think of the cast in this movie?
Oh, I love the cast. But Angelica Huston has been, she was a child actor. She was a working actor since like the 70s. So
Yeah, it was Mary Crosby's second movie, not
okay.
Angelica
Okay.
Huston. I was mistaken.
Get your shit together. No, I love it. It's so fun, like, because like I saw this when I was a kid too, like just like Danny, and like I remember loving it. I think it was on HBO a lot when I was a kid, and I remember seeing it over and over and over again, and probably haven't watched it in several years, but like coming back to it now and remembering like, oh my God, Ron Perlman and Angelica Huston, and like I know that Robert Urich is famous, but I don't know why, and I had to look that up, and it was just so fun, just seeing these young actors back in like the prime of their youth, and being like, wow, these are like some staple actors, like Ron Perlman, Sons of Anarchy. That's my Ron Perlman, and Hellboy. You know, just seeing them now or seeing them then as like these young people starting their acting career is just fun.
Ron Perlman definitely looks young.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a baby.
Yeah, no, and he does Beauty and the
the
series
Beast.
shortly after this.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was director Stuart Raffles' second movie. His other movie was called The Philadelphia Experiment. But I think after this movie, he never went on to do another film, oddly enough. So let's talk about the ending of this film.
Okay.
So basically, they have to follow these very specific coordinates in order to get to this mythical seventh planet, which turns out to be Earth. And as they're going forward, it's kind of funny because like they start aging, and the way they go about doing this is it's very subtle, where they just start growing bigger beards,
Yeah.
kind of like Vader over here.
every week it's a little bit longer. And
But before you get into it, I want to talk about like the setup to this.
Okay,
So
yeah, go ahead.
there's been like this chemistry between the princess and our main pirate throughout the movie. Like he wanted to rape her, he couldn't, he was upset about it. They finally get to have sex, and it's this very romantic with physical like
Rain. Yeah.
even though like we're in a desert world and there's no water.
Well, it was on the ship.
Yeah.
And you remember I pointed out to you, I was like, I thought water was super valuable. Why is it raining on
But
them?
I guess it was a simulation, but
So
it was also physical. I don't know. I don't
it
understand
was a
space
holodeck.
rules.
It was a holodeck.
Yeah, it's a holodeck. And they make love in the rain, and it's very romantic, and there's thunder and lightning and explosions of a physical kind. And then the next scene is this time warp scene. And then it's very clear that they did not use protection during that.
Yeah, and like she gets pregnant. Yeah,
Like immediately.
yeah, she gets pregnant and has
That's
a baby
how I get pregnant.
within like an hour. And it's kind of funny because the character of Jason, played by Robert Urich, he's called to her quarters, and she presents him with his child, and he's like, "That's not mine."
Yeah, he gives 0 Fs. It's really funny, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
he's
And then
the
baby,
worst father.
The baby pees on him, and he's like, "Yeah, he's okay. He's probably mine."
Yeah, but like he just wants to shirk this responsibility because he's being the ship's being boarded by paladins as this is going on, and they keep sending their robots to go fight them. And at one point, there's like this weird character played by Bruce Vilanch, who some of you might recognize from if you ever watched the original Hollywood Squares TV show. He was this comedy writer who was always on there, and in this movie, he plays like this crime boss who gets beheaded, and they put his head on this like robot, and he's just like walking around like cracking jokes and stuff like that. And he's like this really bizarre character.
It reminded me of
Dollman. I was just gonna say
where
that.
they would just like zoom in on his head, and then he would have his scene, so they wouldn't have to like show the rest of his body.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like you know, like his head's popping out of a table, and it just looks like it's like lying there. But you know, he's going along, and he's not aging because you know he's dead, I guess. But all the other ice pirates are getting older and like dying of old age and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's just like a skeleton at one point.
I think
and it was like the maid.
That was the maid.
Yeah. And Ron Perlman's character, like, you know, he's like super old and decrepit as like the final battle's like starting, and he just like falls over and dies. And I think Roscoe and Jason, you know, they're these two old men, and there's all this craziness going on around them, and it looks like they're not going to be able to like fight because they're so old. And then like his young son shows up, played by Robert Urich.
Hi, Dad, it's me. Here to save you.
He saves the day.
And then like as soon as they make it through the time portal, everything goes back to normal. So like they go back to their original age. The sun never existed, all this stuff. And the end of the movie is basically them finding Earth. And the paladins who were pursuing them, they were off by like a fraction of a degree in their pursuit, and therefore like they're stuck in that time warp forever. So the bad guys are all destroyed. And I think the main paladin supreme commander was played by John Carradine. So
Okay.
I believe this might have been his last film appearance. I'm not 100% sure on that. But that's basically how the movie ends. And one of the interesting things about all these like space movies that we're going to be talking about today is that they're all based off of like a piece of source material. And this one was Jason and the Argonauts, the Odyssey. So the main character's name is Jason. Like he's got his crew on the ship, and they're on this quest to find this mythical thing. So that was kind of like the impetus for this story, was Jason and the Argonauts.
That's
and stuff like
interesting.
that. Yeah. So guys, let's go around and give final ratings and final thoughts and all that good stuff. So Danny, what are your final thoughts, and what would you rate this movie?
Oh, I'm totally biased because of my childhood. So it's what do you guys do here? Like a scale of what? 1 to
Whatever
10?
you feel like.
1 to 5?
Yeah.
I give it a solid, I give it 3.5. I give it 3.5.
Well, that's a good solid rating. Vader, final thoughts, and what would you rate it?
These kind of movies are hard to judge for me, but for the most part, I had fun. and it's a PG movie, so it's kind of weird because they're trying to be a little risque and a little dirty in some parts, but
I don't think they had PG-13 at this
no,
point
they
Yeah,
did
in
not.
history.
But you know, there were some things that this movie was missing that I always look for when I want to judge a good campy movie, like boobs.
Boobs. I
You
know.
But you know, whatever, it's fine. It was fun, good fun, but it was also kind of really shitty in some ways. It was just like I was really confused watching this movie whether I wanted to like it or not. I really was.
Didn't you take issue with it being called shitty sci-fi movies though? And you just called it shitty.
Well, yeah, but I'm more offended that Kadish put Space Sweepers in this.
Oh, okay.
Because I actually really like that movie. Yeah. But for a grade for this, for what it is, I'm going to give it like a 3. I think it's fair. You know, it's fun. You know, watch it with your kids.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
So can't do that if there's boobs in it.
I know, right? It's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Jude, final thoughts and rating.
I love this movie. This is a staple of my childhood. I could watch it again and again and again. That being said, it 100% is a shitty space movie, and it is exactly what it's supposed to be for me. So I give it 4 out of 5 space robots.
Very high rating. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. It's campy fun. You can tell that everyone involved knew what type of movie they were making, and they weren't taking it very seriously. And they were just having fun with it. And so, like, you just kind of go along with it. It is a good kids movie, I think. Like, you could sit a kid in front of this movie, and they'd probably giggle, as it goes along. Overall, like I think that this is a solid 3-star movie. Like I just think that it's a fun film.
It's like a sci-fi police academy.
It really is.
That's
it.
I like that.
That's an excellent way to describe it. Yeah.
Sometimes I say things that are smart.
Sometimes. All right, guys. So that was our discussion of Ice Pirates. I hope you all enjoyed this and decided to go check out the movie. And when we come back from this brief commercial break, we will talk about the next film up, which is, of course, Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
So stay tuned.
Battle Beyond the Suck.
Welcome back, everyone. And just a reminder, if you want to check out some of our merchandise, you can go to saltynerdstore.com. There we've got all types of t-shirt designs that are really cool. I'm wearing one right now. I think I might be the only one who's wearing something from our store.
You are.
But if you want to check out what we got available, please go to saltynerdstore.com. And it's a great way to support the podcast. If you don't want to join our Patreon or whatever, you can just buy one of our shirts. Anyway, guys, let's talk about the next movie on the list, which is, of course, Battle Beyond the Stars. Jude?
Yes.
What do you have to say about this movie?
Several things. 1980 Battle Beyond the Stars, rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour 44 minutes. Had a budget of $2 million. What do you think this brought into the box office?
Danny?
Maybe $1 million.
Vader?
Negative $500.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Remember, it's a Roger Corman movie, and Roger Corman movies always make money.
Yeah, he's never lost money on a movie.
How much was it?
$2 million. This is, I think, the most he's ever spent on a movie.
2.1 million.
Okay. $7.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been that Walton's crowd coming to the
Right?
movies.
Yeah. All right. You ready for the synopsis?
I bet it's more entertaining than the actual movie.
When the evil warlord Sador sets his sights on conquering the peaceful planet of Akira, a farm boy / John Boy flees the planet in his lady part-shaped ship to find help. In his space travels, he meets the beautiful and intelligent Nanalia, who's never met a boy before and whose father does everything he can to entice them to bang. Nanalia teams up with Shad, the farm boy, and they recruit Space Cowboy and Earthling, a bunch of bored clones named Nestor, a horny Valkyrie, an assassin, and Cayman, a cannibal who decided not to eat Nanalia once she mentioned Sador, because he's got unfinished business with the warlord.
All right, guys. So I know that you all probably have a lot to say about this movie. So, Danny, why don't you give us your general thoughts about Roger Corman's Battle Beyond the Stars?
This out of all the movies, or the 3 movies we were talking about today, this was the hardest one for me to watch. It took me a few Like it's like it didn't matter how much pot I smoked. I could not get into this movie. The best I will say though, I did get excited at the beginning when I could recognize James Horner was doing the score because I'm a big Star Trek fan.
Freaked me out.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, this sounds so familiar. Why? And then I saw his name. I was like, cool. Well, at least they got somebody good to score it. And then it was downhill from there.
Yeah.
This was actually one of James Horner's first movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think this was actually his first movie to be the main composer for.
There's a lot of similarities between this score and the Wrath of Khan score.
Right.
You know?
I sent a text to our group chat, which you're not in, but I'm like, did James Horner rip himself off for Wrath of Khan? It's like, what is happening here? And it kind of annoyed me.
Oh, really?
It really did. Because this movie shouldn't have anything to do with the Wrath of Khan.
Right.
Wrath of Khan's like one of 2 of my 5-star movies of all time.
Listen, you don't always know that a movie's going to be shitty while you're making it.
Oh, well, no, they knew this movie was going to be shitty when they made it.
Well,
It's a $2 million 1980s money movie.
What's interesting about Roger Corman is like he gave a lot of like, major people who are major now their start. James Horner being one of them. For those of you out there who don't know who James Horner is, he was a very famous musical composer for movies in the 1980s and 90s. So he did the score for Star Trek II, 48 Hours, Krull, Star Trek III, Commando, Aliens, Willow, Field of Dreams, The Rocketeer. Like if you look him up on IMDb, like you'll just recognize like every movie he scored, and the iconic Star Trek kind of Next Generation theme sprung from his stuff, his work in Star Trek II and Star Trek III, and so on and so forth. So, Vader, what were your initial thoughts about this movie?
My initial thoughts were, like Danny said, I got annoyed at James Horner that he has any connection from this movie to Star Trek. It really annoyed me because the music kept playing and I kept wanting to see the Reliant and the Enterprise, shooting at each other, and I'm like, what is happening right now?
Genesis Planet, like
but no, man, I don't even know what to say about this movie, Matt, because it's absolute garbage. It's trash. It really is awful. The sets are bad. The actors are bad. The ships are like they pulled them out of a fucking Cracker Jack box or something. It's just awful. I didn't even enjoy this movie in a fun, good way. It was hard to watch. In fact, the last half hour, I watched it on fast forward.
Oh.
Until like the last 5 minutes, so I could I had to be done with it. I could not finish it. Every time one of the good guys died, I was like, yes, yes, and it wasn't fun. It was a hard watch. I'm upset at Matt for making me watch it, and just a trash movie. I'm sorry. I usually like Corman movies for the most part on a fun level, but this wasn't fun. This was more kind of insulting. I can't believe John Boy even went near this thing. I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't know.
I think this was his first movie. He had been doing the Waltons, but then I think he wanted to break out as a serious actor. He was
a much better actor than this.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what he was thinking.
All right,
and I think they were just trying to, jump on the Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, there's a lot of the ship designs are kind of similar. The swipes, the transitions.
Oh yeah, they stole sound effects. Yeah. They stole music. They stole all kinds of stuff to make these movies. I hear Battlestar Galactica laser beams. I hear Cylons in this thing. I hear stuff from Buck Rogers in the 25th century in this thing. I'm surprised Hawk didn't show up as one of the mercenaries to help him kill, the guy with the big bag dildo ship thing. It was just like with
some of these ship designs.
It was just like John Boy's boob ship.
It looked like a uterus, and then there were boobs on the end of it. Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah, it was weird. It's just I don't know. If it hadn't taken, I feel like this thing was taking itself way too seriously. If this was a Monty Python movie or something, it would have made it way better. You know what I mean? It's just trash, absolute trash.
All right,
it's so hard on
Jude,
it.
What were your initial thoughts about this movie?
Okay, so initially I was very excited because it's a Roger Corman movie, and I've never met a Roger Corman movie I haven't liked. then when I saw the budget, I was like, ooh, they're taking this real seriously. And I was a little trepidatious because what I love about Roger Corman movies is like how low budget they are. I know it's 1980s money. However, I don't know who was deciding what money went where because I don't know that it was spent wisely. This is not a great movie. But because it's a Roger Corman movie, I suspended my disbelief of not liking it. And I don't think I liked it. It was only after I finished watching it, I was like, wow, I don't know if I liked that. But I was really expecting it to be sexier than it was, because usually they are. And usually we get like boobs and stuff, or like sex, like campy, cheesy sex scenes, something that's like funny and sexy and silly and ridiculous. But I didn't get any of that. So like every time we were introduced to a new character, I was like, oh, they're totally gonna bone and it's gonna be weird. And I didn't get any of that. But given that it's a Roger Corman movie, I'm still not gonna say I didn't like it, but it's probably my least favorite Roger Corman movie I've ever seen in my life.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So, you talked about how you didn't know like who was making the money decisions on this movie. And the person who makes the money decision on every Roger Corman movie is Roger Corman. So this was his most expensive movie at this time. It cost $2 million, as Jude said at the beginning. But basically, when Star Wars came out, they upped the game. And so Corman was like, well, we have to compete with Star Wars. And so he wanted to make his Star Wars kind of knockoff in order to cash in on that craze. But
epic knockoff.
Yeah, but he knew he had to kind of play the special effects game. And so he went to a bunch of different special effects houses saying like, hey, I want to make this space movie. How much can you do it for? And they were all quoting him basically like, we'll do it for, $2 million. And he's like, well, that's the budget of my movie.
Yeah, that's the entire budget.
And so what Roger Corman did is he was like, okay, well, if I can't find people to do the special effects cheap enough, I'm going to make my own special effects house. And so for this movie, he created his own little special effects company.
He's a pioneer, I swear.
Well, what's funny, it's kind of funny to hear you guys kind of rag on the ship design and all this other stuff for this movie, because I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but without this movie, we wouldn't have gotten the Terminator movies. We wouldn't have gotten Aliens. We wouldn't have gotten Avatar. We wouldn't have gotten any James Cameron movie.
This movie came out after Alien did.
No, Aliens, the sequel.
Okay.
This was James Cameron's first movie.
Wow.
And he met his wife and future producing partner, Gail Ann Hurd, on this movie. And what's funny is that, he came on, he didn't have any experience in the film business, okay? And because it's a Roger Corman movie and he doesn't care about experience, the guy that he hired to be the art director / special effects supervisor just brought on all these kids from college who were doing special effects work, and James Cameron was one of them.
Roger Corman will pull up to the Home Depot and just be like, who wants a job for the day?
Pretty much. So basically, James Cameron got hired to come on this movie as a model maker. And so he was the one who came up with all the ship designs in this movie. And in the script, the AI for the main ship, Nell, was a female. And so because all the spaceship designs from Star Wars and all this stuff were very angular, he wanted to do something kind of outside the box. And so he pitched this idea to Roger Corman, and he's like, I want to make a ship with female curves that, kind of evoke a kind of, matriarchal feeling. And Corman was like, what the fuck does that mean? And Cameron was like, I basically want to make a ship with tits. And Cameron was like, I love it. Let's do it. Or Corman said that. So the ship with tits was totally 100%.
It's a weird ship.
James Cameron's idea.
It's a boob ship.
Yeah.
It's funny you guys associate it with boobs. The first time I saw it, maybe it was because I was watching on the phone. I thought it looked like a nutsack.
It does kind of look nutty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does look like the female reproductive system
Yeah.
if you kind of zoom out
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
take a look at it.
It's very strange.
Yeah. So that was 100%
It's like-
a young James Cameron call.
It's like
on
looking
that
at a Rorschach ink blot and being like, what do you see? Do you see balls? Do you see boobs? Do you see a uterus?
My favorite actor in this entire movie was John Boy's mole. Outstanding job, outstanding performance by the mole.
The
That
bad
was very
guy,
good.
the bad guy Satyr, I always confuse him with John Voight. So for me, he's the poor man's John Voight, but he was in Nightmare on Elm Street, right? He was the dad.
He was a dad in Nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the
The
sheriff.
cop. Yeah.
With the ice car.
So about midway through pre-production, when all the special effects were being done or planned out, the guy who was running the special effects art department didn't know how to do any of like the camera work for the special effects, like all the
You
miniature
don't
stuff.
say.
I am shocked to hear that.
Well, this was relatively new stuff, and so like no one on the special effects team had any experience, shooting like models and trying to composite stuff and do these special effects. And so he went to his crew and he was like, does anyone know how to do this stuff? And James Cameron lied and said, like, I know how to do it. And so they're like, congratulations, you've just been promoted to special effects supervisor.
All right.
And so like James Cameron went about like all the shots of like spaceships and models and space stuff in this movie were shot by James Cameron, or at least directed by him. So James Cameron went from a nobody college student to a model maker to the head of the miniatures special effects photography in this movie. And then something happened
Okay.
where, so on a low budget movie like this, you usually have a lot of people wearing a lot of different hats, like doing a lot of different stuff. And the art director / special effects supervisor that they had originally hired for this movie was kind of used to the more traditional studio system where he was like the head of the department and he would have underlings that go about and do stuff. And because this was such a low budget film, he didn't have a whole lot of underlings like at his beck and call. And because he wasn't used to like doing a lot of this stuff himself, he was falling behind schedule. And so Roger Corman was like, you're fired, And once that guy got fired, Roger Corman promoted James Cameron to the head of his special effects art department.
Coming up in the world.
So James Cameron literally went from a nobody to the head of the special effects art department for this movie, all within
I'm going to give you your big break, kid.
What's he finally? What's he credited with? James Cameron.
I don't know. I'd have to.
Let me see if it's on the
Look at the thing.
IMDb.
But I just found it very interesting that James Cameron's DNA was all over this movie. And in fact, the guy who wrote this screenplay, his name is John Sayles, and you might recognize him as the screenwriter for the movie The Howling. Ooh. And he also was the showrunner for the Alienist TV show on TNT. And he's done a lot of stuff. He was one of Roger Corman's kind of go-to writers back in the day. And the source material that this movie was based on was actually the Seven Samurai. This is basically the Seven Samurai in space.
Out.
Yeah. Like if
I can see that.
Yeah, like if you look at it, the Seven Samurai is about this small village that is being threatened by a warlord. So they send someone out to go and recruit mercenaries to help protect their village. And they get 7 samurai to come and basically fight this warlord and protect the village in a final battle at the end of the movie. And the 7 samurai are eventually like killed off, and but the village is saved and blah blah blah. And this is basically the exact same plot as Battle Beyond the Stars. And so like one of the interesting things about this movie is that the planet that is being threatened is called Akir, and so the people who live on it are called the Akira. And that was a nod to Akira Kurosawa, who made the Seven Samurai. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting stuff kind of going on in this movie. But overall, you guys didn't seem to like it. So what was the part that really kind of turned you off, Danny?
I've never been a Robert Vaughn. I was
Roger Corman.
No.
Robert Vaughn?
Yeah, he's in this, right?
Yeah, he plays the mercenary guy.
Yeah.
The one who...
He's just a really bad actor, in my opinion. I've never, ever enjoyed that guy's work in anything.
What about George Peppard?
Which one was he?
He was the cowboy from A-Team.
It just, I don't know, it just seemed like, I don't know, a lot of the acting didn't land for me. A lot of, in this, it just, I don't want to take a big shit on this movie, especially because I didn't know James Cameron had anything to do with it. And I kind of feel bad.
It's okay. You
He's
can take a
probably
shit on
not
it.
going to listen to this podcast.
But,
You're probably safe to speak freely.
but, no, it was, it felt like it wanted to be more serious than it was, but it was like it was too hokey, but it wasn't hokey enough for me to like it. You know what I mean? And then I just didn't like the.
Yeah, I know just what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like when we were watching it, Jude was like, I feel like this is a softcore porn without the porn.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like.
Vader, what was the part of this movie that you liked the least?
Oh, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It just wasn't good, man. It was just the acting was terrible. The special effects are terrible. I don't even know how to narrow it down to how much I think this movie sucks. It's just, it was a hard watch. It was really hard watch. It's just, of all the movies we've watched on this podcast, this is like bottom 3. Dude.
Shut
Oh yeah,
up.
it's fucking horrible. It's
not that bad.
It's right there. It's right there with Chopping Mall and that
How dare you?
and that terrible Peter Jackson movie that Kadish
No, that one's really bad.
that I got 20 minutes into and I said, "Fuck this." You're lucky.
That one almost broke up.
You're
me,
lucky.
Kadish.
You're lucky. I bothered to watch the last half hour and fast forward because I wanted to just turn it off. No, it's awful. It's just, there's good actors, and George Papard is a good actor. He phoned this in. He didn't take this seriously. He just wanted
The cowboy, right?
yeah, whatever paycheck he get. And I felt like I was watching like weird villains from television shows, kind of thrown into this stupid movie with John Boy Walton on it.
Yeah, George Papard and Robert Vaughn were both paid like the
Yeah.
most out of the whole cast because I think Robert Vaughn, he was coming off of Man from U.N.C.L.E. and George Papard was coming off the A-Team, and
Yeah.
so like they were the most recognizable names.
And there was just, I'm sorry, man, I don't even know what to say about this. It just wasn't fun for me. Maybe I was in the wrong mindset or something. But this was hard. This was a really hard movie for me to get through. And I don't care if James Cameron's DNA is all over it. It just looks like shit. I don't like it.
I did like the snarky ship though. How she was always giving the
Yeah.
John Boy shit.
Jude, was there a part of this movie that you just didn't like?
Yes, but I didn't realize it until I was through. Like I kept expecting it to be classic Roger Corman, campy, cheesy, the movies that make me. And it just wasn't. And I do think that this was like him taking a movie very seriously and trying something different, which for me is not what I want in a Roger Corman movie. So like the movie itself is what I didn't like about the movie, but I didn't realize it until I was done. I really kept I kept hanging in there, expecting it to get campy, and when it didn't, and then it ended, and I was like, oh, what a disappointment.
It's funny listening to all you guys crap on this movie. I think I might be the only one here who actually liked this film.
Well, you don't know when things are funny.
Well, I mean, like this isn't a funny film, but like I thought it was a pretty solid movie. The creativity behind it was very interesting to me. Like all the different alien races were kind of unique. You have like Nestor, who's basically this kind of like the Borg in the sense that he's got this collective consciousness and he has multiple clones of himself that he sends out into the galaxy because he's bored and he's just like looking for stuff to do. And so like you meet these 5 Nestors about midway through the movie that Shad recruits, and they're just like, we're going up against Sador, who's like the most terrible bad guy in the galaxy, and Nestor's like, yeah, but I'm bored, so we'll do this.
Yeah.
And then you have Cowboy, who's George Papard's character, and he's just kind of like a space trucker who doesn't give a fuck. Like when we first meet him, his ship is basically about to be destroyed by these pirates, and he's just sitting there drinking his whiskey and listening to his bad music, and just almost kind of like not fazed at all by being attacked. I actually thought Robert Vaughn's character was very interesting. His name was Gelt, and he was like this this mercenary who basically was so effective that he made so many enemies that he couldn't enjoy the spoils of like his life of ill repute. And so basically he said, hey, I'll help you out in exchange for like a place to live and human contact. And so Shad basically offers him to, come to their planet.
Room and board for your help in our war.
Yeah, and a hot meal and stuff like that. And so,
a woman for your bed.
Yes. And I thought all this stuff was very interesting. And then I'm surprised Vader hasn't mentioned Saint Eximen, the space Valkyrie, because all throughout the movie, like Jude and I were
waiting for her nipple to fall out.
Yeah. Jude and I were just like, where's her nipple? Because she's got this one like costume where like her boob is very much exposed. And you'd think there should be a nipple there, but it's just never there.
The power of makeup.
Yeah.
And the PG rating.
Yeah, it was just odd.
And in fact, they had to, for one of her costumes, they had to use Band-Aids to like stick it to her boobs to keep her from popping out, basically, which I thought was kind of funny.
I've done that.
Yeah. But one of the interesting things I thought about this movie is the sets, because Roger Corman, this was his biggest budget movie to date. And the director who's listed on this movie, his name is Jimmy Murakami. And he's primarily an animation director. In fact, he made the movie Heavy Metal, the animated movie. And that was kind of like his big claim to fame. And I think this is the only live action movie that they have listed for him. And Roger Corman kind of ghost directed this movie. So even though Jimmy Murakami is listed as the director, this was really Roger Corman's baby. And so he'd come on sets as they're being built to kind of like look at them. And whenever he'd come on a set where people were working, he'd just start firing people because he hated the look of the set. He's like, this set's dog shit. Like, get out of here. You're fired. And so James Cameron, when he got promoted to, the main job of being the art director, he knew that whenever Roger Corman came on set and he saw it being like, constructed, he'd get pissed and he'd start firing people. But when he came on when nobody was around, he'd look at it, he'd be like, okay, this looks fine. And so he had a lookout for when Roger Corman would come when they were building their sets. And he'd tell everyone, get off the set. And so like when Roger Corman came on, it looked like nobody was on set. And he'd be like, funny. Oh, this is cool. And so like he saved a lot of people's jobs by kind of predicting when Roger Corman was going to come on set.
I feel like with movies like this, like the behind the scenes story is always more entertaining than the actual movie itself.
Yeah, I mean, like if you've ever read Roger Corman's autobiography, which I believe is called How I Made 1,000 Movies and Never Lost a Penny or something like that.
It's a very long title.
It is a long title, but it's a very interesting book because Roger Corman actually wrote it himself, and he has a lot of great anecdotes.
That guy can do anything.
And, like I said, without this movie, we would have never gotten any James Cameron films, because this is the thing that kind of got his career going, but also hooked him up with, his producing partner who, so without her, he wouldn't have been able to make any of these movies.
Well, what you're telling me is this movie is directly responsible for Avatar.
Yes, pretty much.
I wish this movie never had been made.
Well, I mean, it's also responsible for Terminator 2. Aliens.
I know, man.
So
I'm just goofing, Maddie. Just goofing.
Yeah. So like I'm actually someone who thought this movie was pretty decent for what it was. And I think at the time that it came out, it was probably a pretty solid entry into Roger Corman's filmography. It is kind of weird. There are some weird things in it. Like the two Kelvins, who are these beings that communicate in degrees of heat.
Oh yeah, I forgot about them.
Yeah, there's just these two little people, and they don't have any lines in the movie, but they kind of like, use their body temperature to kind of like save the day at certain points. So at the end of this movie, spoilers for anyone who's interested, everyone dies, except for our two lovebirds, Shad and
Ninalia.
How do you pronounce it?
Ninalia, I think.
Ninalia. And I kind of like their first meeting because Ninalia, she's on the space station with Dr. Hephaestus, who's her father. And he's just like a head in an egg type thing. And she basically just builds all these androids to kind of like
keep her company.
Yeah, keep her company, but also like do maintenance on the ship and stuff like that. And they're just actors who act like robots. It's not like Ice Pirates where like they actually had robot costumes. And the funny thing is that because Shad is the first human to actually show up at the station in a long time, Dr. Hephaestus wants him to mate with his daughter and stay there so that she has
Set up the
some
procreation chamber.
It's like, get out the silk sheets quick.
From the very beginning, they have like this kind of like budding romance here. And they're the only two people left alive at the end of the movie. So what did you guys think of the climax of this, Vader? I know you fast forwarded through it, but what do you think of like the, kind of structure of this movie where at the end you have this big battle, everyone dies? Danny?
I was just glad it was over.
Yeah, like Matt asked us all these really like profound questions, and we're like, moving along, man. This movie is awful. No, yeah, I'm with Danny. I was glad it was over too. I didn't put that much thought.
I didn't care. It was my big thing. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Jude, did you care?
I didn't.
You were on an island by yourself on this one, my friend.
All right, so let's go around and give it a final rating and final thoughts. Danny?
Is 0 allowed?
Oh,
It
yeah.
is.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 1/4 star for the boob-shaped ship, and a 1/4 star for John Boy's mole,
Okay.
and that's it. 1/2 star.
Half star?
Oh.
Half star crap fest?
It's not even a 1-star crap fest. It's just a 1/2 star.
Now, Vader, you texted us when you were watching this movie, and you said,
No, I'm gonna give it another 1/2 star for James Horner's music, and we'll call it a 1-star crap fest.
you said the ship gave you odd feelings.
It made my pants feel funny. Yeah, it's like 'cause you want to like grope it and stuff. Yeah, it was definitely weird looking shit.
All right, so one star crap fest,
1-star crap
for
fest.
this movie. Okay, Jude?
I'm not going to be as hard on it as these guys. Like I said, I've never met a Roger Corman movie that I didn't like. This was hard for me to like. Ultimately, I don't think I did, but there were parts of it that I enjoyed. It was not a movie that makes me angry to watch. And usually when I go for 1-star crap fests, that's based on, did this movie make me hate my life, or did it make me angry to have to watch it? None of those things are true. So I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5 Roger Corman movies.
So was the big ship supposed to be like the Death Star with its neutron energon-y neutralizer or whatever they call it?
Sator's ship had this like lunar cannon that would, when it hit a planet, it would basically convert it into a star, and all life on that planet would be destroyed. So yeah, it was kind of like the Death
And
Star.
John Boy was Luke, and
Yeah, you
was
could see
just-
a lot of that.
yeah, it was. Come on.
I mean, Roger Corman made it to kind of piggyback off of Star Wars popularity.
Yeah.
So I think it accomplished what it set out to do.
I'm very upset that Roger Corman's book is not on Audible.
Well, maybe you can correct that.
Oh, I should reach out.
Yeah, you should reach out. I'm sure if you offer to do it for free, he'll take you up on it.
He loves free.
he does. So I'm actually surprised that I'm the only one who actually enjoyed this movie. To me, this was a solid 3-star film. It was entertaining
Brought to you
me.
by the guy who loves Bad Taste.
I know, man.
Hey, Bad Taste is an excellent movie.
I wasn't talking about the movie.
I can see why people wouldn't like this movie. I totally get every single one of your criticisms of it, but to me, like I was expecting it to be complete horse poop, and when I watched it, I was like, actually, like this isn't bad. I mean, if you like the Seven Samurai, you'll like this movie. It's just a space version of that, with like a much more campy like budget, I guess you could say. I didn't think the acting was bad. I didn't think the writing was bad. I thought at worst it was just kind of like mediocre, and some parts were kind of boring, but there was a lot of creativity behind this. And, the whole James Cameron angle and Roger Corman angle, like I enjoyed it surprisingly. So I would recommend this movie if people are interested in watching shitty space films. And that was our discussion of Battle Beyond the Stars. So after a quick commercial break, we will be right back to talk about our final movie, Space Sweepers. Welcome back, everyone. Before we get into our final movie, we'd like to invite you all to come and join us in our growing community over on Discord by going to saltinerdiscord.com. Alex and Vader are both very active over there, and we've got a really great community going. Vader, what type of stuff can they expect when they join our Discord community?
At the Discord?
Yeah.
just a lot of really witty banter back and forth between, members. No, I don't know. We just have fun there. Salty has his editing room where he likes to edit the shows, and people can come in there and chat with him and interact, and it's kind of fun. I have a gaming channel set up there to when I'm streaming games online. I'm always in there on voice chat. That's where you come in and talk to me and stuff. And
I usually pop into the meme one.
Yeah. It's just, it's your standard Discord. It's fun. It's a nice way for people to interact that have a common interest. It's not toxic or in any way like Twitter is. And it's just a nice alternative way to talk to people and chit chat. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so we've got a patron-only section of the Discord, and we've got places where people can suggest what movies for us to watch and things of that nature. So it's a lot of fun. If you guys want to come on over, just go to saltynerddiscord.com. Takes you right to our server. Yeah,
the Discord, it's evolving and growing, and it's going to change as it goes.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about our final movie, which is Space Sweepers, a Netflix original from South Korea. Jude, what can you tell us about Space Sweepers?
Well, first of all, I can tell you that this has been a movie that Vader has been trying to get us to watch for months.
That's the truth.
Yeah, so we finally decided. We kind of built this week around Vader's pick.
He was getting on our case about it.
I was getting real mad.
Yeah,
because we were watching all these other terrible movies, and I go, hey, I got this terrible movie that I really like. That's actually really good.
Yeah, I didn't think it was terrible at all.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah.
All right, so 2021 Space Sweepers, rated TVMA, with a runtime of 2 hours, 16 minutes. I don't have a box office for this, but do you guys want to guess on the budget? Guess in US dollars.
Danny?
10-15 mil.
Okay, Vader, how much do you think this cost to make?
Oh, it's probably way up there. It's probably like 150 plus.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
21 million US dollars.
Man, I'm way off. It's all computer.
You're both terrible at this
all
game.
Computer.
Yeah.
All right, here's a synopsis. The year is 2092. Mars is the new Earth, and Earth is so 2000 and late. The Victory crew tries to make ends meet by collecting space junk. During a collection, they find a magic nanobot child who could save the failing Earth. An evil philanthropist has been using her to create the Mars Oasis and doesn't want his secret to get out, so he schemes to kidnap her and straps her to a bomb headed for Earth. Unfortunately, the Victory crew riffraff have grown attached to the little girl and are willing to sacrifice themselves to save her and the billion human lives left on Earth. I thought this was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was very long, though. I had to watch it over 2 days.
Yeah, it is a very overly long movie, but it was good. So let's go around and get everyone's thoughts. Danny, what did you think of Space Sweepers?
I actually, I did like this a lot, but it gave me more questions than answers. I was really confused. I was also thrown off by there's a lot of different languages in the movie, which is cool, but I didn't understand why were they dubbing the main characters when there were other people speaking, like, there was German, there was Spanish, there was English. Like, go ahead and keep the Korean in there. I mean, just
that's a Netflix thing.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It was just kind of threw me off because, especially when what's that? Bubs becomes the girl at the end, and so like in the dubbing is just not only is it just so bad, it's just like it's the dude voice still, so it's just really weird. So little nitpicky things like that. I was kind of confused by the daughter, the first one, like at the end, that end scene when I don't know, there were just like things
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you watch this after and on the same day that you smoked all that weed to get through the last movie?
No, I watched this for actually. It's when he texted when Cage texted me, it was the first one I was able to find.
Okay.
So I just started watching it right away.
I'm just busting your balls, man.
It's fine. I mean, I might have had a few drinks, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. It did feel like a little bloated, a little long. Didn't really answer all of my questions, but I enjoyed just kind of like a sci-fi movie. I enjoyed it. I was able to just kind of just get on the ride and being a dad, it was kind of cool. Like, I could relate to some of the stuff with the kid, and then when the new girl comes up and he kind of resents her at first, because he's, missing his daughter or whatever. But The villain, has he been in something else? He looked really familiar.
Richard Armitage. He's been in lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff,
He's a
okay.
very well-known British actor. The big thing that I saw him in last was the 3rd season of Hannibal, where he played the Red Dragon character.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's a good bad guy for sure.
He was also in Berlin Station, which was an original series for Epix, and he was also in this British action show for Cinemax, which I think it's called Strike Back. So
he was the only actor in this movie I even vaguely recognized, which, can be good, can be bad. But I enjoyed, I enjoyed it for the most part.
Oh, he was in The Hobbit.
Yeah, he was one of the
Thorin.
He was the main dwarf king guy.
Yeah. Okay, that's where I recognized him from. Then that's definitely what it was.
That's Thorin Oakenshield?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not know this.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I just knew I recognized that guy. It was bugging me the whole
Yeah,
time.
he's a very well-known British actor. Vader, what were your overall thoughts of Space Sweepers?
So I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, you wouldn't shut up about it.
I know,
for
because
months.
you guys wouldn't watch it when I told you to watch it. But I kind of went down this like weird, a while back, I think it was last October, we watched Train to Busan,
Yeah.
right? That got me kind of like in this weird, I got to thinking about why can't we make good movies here anymore? Because obviously the Korean cinema world is capable of making good movies. And I started looking at things like Kingdom on Netflix and Train to Busan and they're starting to win awards on
Was
actual
it Parasite a Korean movie? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I wanted to do just a Korean theme show for the podcast, and Matt kind of said, let's not do that, but that's fine.
That's not a bad idea,
A
though.
lot of good content coming out of other countries,
but
but,
it
not
seems-
this one.
It just seems like there's like actual good movies being made, but they're just not being made in Hollywood. And this movie is like an example of that to me. But Hollywood isn't making big space epics like this anymore.
Well, isn't this the first
And-
Korean like epic sci-fi movie
I
that they
don't
tried
know.
to do?
I don't know, but it
It
looks.
is. This was like Korea's Star Wars, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I was looking for. I was looking for like a new kind of Star Wars kind of thing, and I don't know if this is it. I will admit, upon my second viewing of this movie for this show that we're doing today, I didn't like it as much as I did the first time we watched it.
Oh, wow.
But I still enjoyed it. The first time I was like in. It's like, oh man, this is like the greatest thing I've seen in a decade. But now I'm
It
kind
was
of
early on in the quarantine. Though.
it was. Yeah, it was during quarantine. But now I just kind of feel like this is still a super fun movie, and I want everybody to watch it because I think this is the kind of movie we're missing
Yeah.
in the movies right now.
I agree.
It doesn't have a bunch of people running around in capes and tights.
Right.
It's,
you kind of care about that. You care like
It's
Yeah.
about the characters,
Yeah.
especially
Right.
the little girl.
Right.
And
I enjoyed the characters. I didn't get like, I didn't feel like I was being preached at by some stupid social
Right.
justice warrior in Hollywood.
It's funny because I thought for sure,
uh,
one of you guys was going to bring up the robot gender swap.
didn't bother
thing.
me at all.
Okay,
because
cool.
the robot didn't have a gender.
Right.
Had a
right.
deep voice, but
Right.
whatever. There was no. It didn't bother me at all. I'm not a complete crazy
It
person
wasn't
when
in-
it comes to that stuff.
It wasn't until our little girl calls the robot ma'am or something, and he's like,
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Really excited about
As
it.
a matter of fact,
People are
and
probably.
I thought it was cute. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people are probably going to like say some stuff about how the Victory's captain is this tough woman, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I thought she was kind of hot. I liked her.
Yeah.
And the super soldier was another tough woman stereotype. It's like, whatever. She's
Yeah.
a drugged up super soldier.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me at all. It's just, there's just a lot about this movie. I love the special effects.
Yeah, the special effects are great.
I love the chase scenes in orbit. I love the whole idea
Yeah.
that these people are
I don't think it's
junk. They're garbage men,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's something that
Space garbage men.
we need that now.
Yeah, I
There
keep
is
saying that.
so much
Nobody
shit
listens to me.
floating
I know,
around in space right now that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson was shared a picture of this a while
Yeah.
ago, just showing all the shit floating around
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah. And Elon Musk is just launching cars into space because it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But nobody is like, hey man, maybe we shouldn't do that.
Hey, Elon, I could, would be better with that cars. Like, send it my way.
That's going to happen. That's going to be a real thing.
Yeah.
In the next probably 50 years.
I like some of the cool ideas too.
Oh, yeah.
With Bubs, with the just going out into space because like it's an android, so it can, or a robot or whatever.
Yeah.
And that harpoon thing that it did.
It's wild.
It was awesome, man. I hadn't
very,
seen like that.
There's some very like, how do I say this without being offensive? Asian, Japanese manga, anime style stuff to this.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah.
It's not something that American audiences are used to. And I wasn't really sure how like they were going to, people like my brother or whoever is going to react to some of the over the top space scenes in this, because it's different. It's not Star Wars. It's not Star Trek. It's very much its own style and thing. And I appreciated that, and I really liked it.
And the effects kind of remind me a little bit. Have you guys watched The Expanse? You guys ever watched The Expanse?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that show. The effects, for some reason, I don't know if it was similar or maybe they used the same effects place or whatever. I don't know, but it kind of reminded me a lot of some of The Expanse special effects.
The special effects in this movie were very impressive.
Yeah.
Like it looked like $100 million movie.
Oh yeah,
Really
that's
did.
why I thought it was probably at least $100 million movie. But I'm impressed that they can make a movie like this on that low of a budget these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a
It makes me
lot
hopeful.
of sci-fi that we've gotten in the last 20, 30 years have been like making movies off of what we've already gotten. So we're used to seeing like the same special effects, the same kind of ships. And this is very different and very kind of like the new sci-fi, today's sci-fi, without it being like a commentary on like social issues. It's just new and it's inventive, but it's still sci-fi.
But it also makes sense. Like if you look like, because they're basically, like you said, space trash collectors. Like if you look at their ship, even it looks very much like
That's a garbage
like
bin.
a boxy garbage truck.
It's
kind of
the
thing,
garbage truck guys that go around and pick up all the freaking things with the fork. And it's just like, except they got a robot with a harpoon dragging the satellites in to take to the garbage.
And I really enjoyed how this had the story and the characters were like at the forefront of what this movie was. And it was able to bring up these other issues like, the earth failing and pollution and like, how are we going to survive in the universe with all of the damage that we've done to the earth? And like all of in space, like junk flying around space and it's dangerous. Like they were able to touch on all of this, but that wasn't the message that they were sending out. The message was, check out this awesome sci-fi movie, and also all of this other shit is happening in the movie. And it made sense. It tied everything together, and it made it a joy to watch.
I'd argue that it doesn't make complete sense, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Don't be so nitpicky. We just watched
Well,
Battle Beyond the
I think-
Stars, and you liked it.
I think there's a lot of science fiction tropes and stuff that are in this, but I think a movie like this has to have that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To
The
make us want- to make us
philanthropist is
connect
the
to it.
bad guy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and, I mean, that's fine. Whatever, big corporation. There's
Yeah.
but,
We're trying to cover our tracks.
There's definitely some environmental messages that are done in this movie, and that's just the way. That's just
It's part of the story.
it's part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing, the biggest nitpick I have with this movie is that it's set 70 years from now.
Yeah, that's a little too
Okay,
unrealistic.
I agree.
we need to get our shit going. This needs
Yeah.
to be like 2294.
Yeah.
Not 2094.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we need to start working on our space elevators and because that's real technology. If you guys didn't know that. That's something that's theoretically possible to do, where they all got shot up into orbit and the big round thing at the beginning to the orbiting space city thing,
Right.
and
Yeah, so like the
factory, I think it's called.
The plot of this movie is basically Earth has been environmentally devastated, and so humanity has moved into the orbit of the planet by creating these like space communities. And there's a definite class system where you have like the rich people who are in the nice areas, and then you have the poor people who are kind of stuck on these like crappy space stations.
And then there's
Earth.
still like 1 billion people left on Earth that can't even afford to go up there at all.
And there's this corporation that runs all the space communities, and because of all the debris up in space, they need these space sweepers, that is what they call them, to basically collect all the debris before they can damage any of like the residential areas. And at this point, they're trying to terraform Mars and abandon Earth completely. And that's kind of like the main focus of this evil corporation, which also keeps everyone in perpetual debt. So like the space sweepers, like they're just barely scraping by. And every time they, turn in their junk for cash, they get more deeper and deeper in debt.
It's like, what was at one point like, oh, here's this, so you get paid. Oh, you destroyed the antenna, so now you owe us money.
Yeah.
760 space credits or whatever.
And our main character is doing this because in an explosion, his daughter was cast out into space, and he's just trying to locate her body. So every penny that he makes while being this space sweeper is spent on trying to locate his daughter's body, just so that he can like have closure on his dead kid.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the characters in a minute, but Vader, I wanted to ask you: did you recognize this story at all?
I'm not sure where you're coming from. So
this movie is basically Cowboy Bebop.
I have not watched Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, okay.
So
Good, neither have I.
Yeah, it's something that's on the list of things that I want to watch, and I know I have to watch the animated series before the live action one gets released one of these years. But it's definitely on my list of things to watch. And yeah.
So when I was watching this movie, I was sitting here the whole time. I was like, "This is just Cowboy Bebop, only instead of bounty hunters, they're trash collectors." But Cowboy Bebop it's about this crew that's always hard up for money. They're in this.
They're bounty hunters, right?
They are bounty hunters, but it's kind of like the same thing where like they travel the system pursuing these bounties, and the bounties are always like super difficult. Life is really difficult, and the money that they make off the bounties just barely gets them by. And they're on a ship called the Bebop, and in their society, bounty hunters are called cowboys. So it's just them and like every character in this show has kind of like a parallel in the Cowboy Bebop show. And so when I was watching this, I was like, man, like they just kind of ripped off Cowboy Bebop. But the guy who wrote and directed this movie, his name's Jo Sung-hee, and he was inspired to make this movie initially based off of like a friend telling him about like space junk and how dangerous it is. And so he was like, well, there should be people up there collecting that junk. And so
there should be.
Yeah.
And I think there will be.
And
That's
every
gonna be a
time
thing.
we go up there, we leave junk behind, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's going to prevent us from leaving Earth.
and so he wrote this movie, and this was like he'd done a couple movies before this, but this was like his first big budget space sci-fi movie. Like Korean movies aren't big on the space science fiction type stuff, so this was very unique when it came out. And in fact, part of this movie's budget, about $4 million worth of it, was financed by the Chinese company Tencent, which is basically the Chinese government.
Yeah.
They went out and they made this movie, and probably the most interesting part about this movie is the core characters. So you have Taeho, who's the main character, and he was a former super soldier, kind of drafted when he was a kid by the corporation to be like one of their main pilots and forefront kind of like enforcers who would go around kind of like destroying the ships of these poor people who were trying to escape Earth. And in one of his missions, he accidentally comes across a young baby girl. And
he kills her mother.
Yeah, he kills her mother, and he actually injures the girl's hearing.
Yeah.
And so he adopts her and kind of like, cares for her, raises her as his own. And because of that, he loses his position in the corporation. They kind of like exile him.
Well, it was more because he stopped killing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he
Got a conscience.
Yeah, his daughter gave him a conscience, and so like he couldn't perform his job anymore. And once he was exiled, he kind of like fell into like a funk and
debt.
Yeah, and when he was gambling, his daughter kind of wandered off, and there was a space debris impact in the station they were in that created a breach that sucked her out into space along with a bunch of other innocent people. And so he is carrying around this guilt that he wasn't there to protect his daughter, and he wants to find her body so that he can like say goodbye to her properly before like she drifts too far out into space where she can never be found again. Yeah. And so that's kind of what's driving him. He's the owner of the ship that they're on, and the ship is called Victory.
I thought the captain was the owner.
Yeah, I thought she was the owner.
No, he's the one who owns the ship. The captain's the one who is basically in charge of the ship.
Okay.
And the Captain Jang is the name, and that's the female character. And she was like her background is that she was an assassin who tried to kill the guy, Richard Armitage, who runs like the evil corporation. She failed, and so she had to like get eye surgery to change out her eyes and change her identity so like he couldn't track her down and get revenge for trying to kill him.
I really enjoyed how they took some time to give everybody in this story a little bit of a backstory.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of movies don't do anymore. So,
And then you had Tiger Park or Uncle Tiger.
yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah.
I love him.
And he was a former like drug kingpin on Earth, and he kind of like rehabilitated himself and, you know, went up into space.
He's got all these sick face tattoos.
Yeah. And then we have Bubs, who was an assassin robot, and somehow his AI got upgraded where he was kind of self-aware, and he was like, I don't want to kill people anymore. So like, you know, he joins this crew, and he's actually
It's a she.
it joins this crew.
They.
And it's the only one that's really good with saving money.
Yeah.
It's also good at cheating them out of it.
Yeah.
The robot, like at one point, is like putting makeup on the little girl, and like they've all like they found this girl. They don't know what to do with her, and then they just decide to like start.
Initially,
raising her.
they were going to ransom her off because so the story behind this little girl, her name is it Kim Soo-yi?
Something like that.
Yeah, they call her Dorothy in the news. but-
Okay. So no, it was Dorothy Kang not Nim, something like Dorothy,
Hold
whatever.
on. Yeah, I'll look it up.
Well,
Don't offend the entire country.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone knows I'm the destroyer for
You're
it.
confusing Kotnam with Sunni, and you're trying to like
Yeah.
combine their names.
So I'm just going to call her Dorothy.
Okay.
So
Such an American.
in this ship that was kind of like veering out of control at the beginning of the movie, the space sweepers, our intrepid crew, salvage the ship. And as they're going about doing it, they find this girl in a spacesuit who was kind of nestled in there. And all over the news, there's been warnings about a girl who's actually an android that is actually a bomb.
Yeah, a dangerous weapon.
A dangerous weapon that if she blows up, it's like...
She's like
A planet
thermonuclear
destroyer.
device, right?
Yeah. It's a planet destroyer.
Which is all a lie.
Yeah. So the space sweepers find this girl, and they realize that there are two groups after her. So first is the major evil corporation, because they consider her a threat. And the second is this radical group called the Black Foxes or something like that. And so they decide to try to reach out to one of these groups and ransom her for like $2 million. And
2 million space bucks.
2 million space bucks. and so that's when the story starts to change is like first they want to ransom her off, and that doesn't go too well. So they're stuck with her. And as they're stuck with her, you see her bond with each crew member. And it gets to the point where the crew is basically like, you know, we can't ransom her. We have to protect her.
Yeah.
And that's when the movie goes from, you know, this kind of ragtag group of unlikable space janitors to an actual like fun adventure film where you're on board and you're like, I like all these characters and stuff like that. And so Tejo's story about like, you know, trying to find his daughter because of the guilt he's carrying eventually gets transferred on to Dorothy, where what we find out is that she was a sick girl who got injected with these nanobots, these special nanobots from her father, who was a scientist for this evil corporation. And these nanobots are special in the sense that they can actually repair the damage done to Earth. And so she's the key to salvaging Earth. But the evil corporate philanthropist, Elon Musk type, I believe his name, Sullivan. He wants to destroy the Earth. Like he's been alive for like 125 years. He's got some weird type of mutation. They never really explain what it is. But like his whole thing is he wants vengeance on the Earth for the way they treated him and his family. So he wants to move everyone to Mars, or everyone who he deems worthy to Mars. And he wants to use this nanotechnology to terraform Mars and basically create a bomb to destroy the Earth and blame it on this Dorothy girl.
It really is kind of a weird Elon Musk thing.
Yeah. He's got this weird, like, I can tell if you're a good person or not thing. And he like tempts people. It's very like the temptation of Christ. He's like, I'm going to give you everything you want, but you have to do a horrible thing first.
And then
It's
it's
so
a trap.
weird.
And then it's a
Yeah,
trap.
it's a trap. It's a trap. Of course it is.
He has a very low opinion of humanity.
Yeah.
Like he has no problem killing 1 billion people on Earth.
Yeah, did they ever explain what that was?
No.
With him? With
No.
the
With
these
the, like,
black
the-
veins or
yeah.
whatever? It
He's
was
some
weird.
kind of mutant.
Well, so from what I could gather, so there are these nanobots in space that were like a failed attempt to fix the Earth, right? And they're the way that they operate is they can repair themselves so fast that they can't be destroyed. And so like there are clouds of them kind of like floating out in space that everyone tries to avoid because once they attach themselves to a ship, they'll start eating away at it. And their whole purpose is to create more of themselves. So they'll tear a ship apart to create more nanobots. And my guess is because the nanobots are the same color as like the veins in his skin, that he has these nanobots within him that are continually keeping him alive, which is why he's been able to live so long.
Okay.
None of this is explained in the movie, by the way. This is just me
purely
guessing.
conjecture
Yeah.
on Kadish's part.
Head
No,
canon.
well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
you being smart enough to figure
This is
it out because I
Kadish's
could
head
have.
canon.
Yeah.
So basically, he Sullivan has these nanobots inside of him that continually keep him alive, but he has to keep them under control. And when he starts to lose his temper, they kind of flare up in his veins, and if he doesn't get control back, they could destroy him.
I'm gonna wait for the YouTube comments to say, "Well, actually, this is what's going," because that's gonna happen. I hope.
But those nanobots, because of the way that they replicate, actually play an important part in the story, because the only way to kill Dorothy, because she has these nanobots inside of her, is to detonate this krypton bomb, is what they call it.
Krypton waves.
Yeah, krypton waves. And it's this super bomb that is so explosive it could take out an entire planet. And the only way that they can kill these nanobots is with an explosion that big, because they won't have time to like repair themselves.
And the nanobots inside of Dorothy are like they repaired her body, and then when she like gets close to like a plant or something, she makes it flourish. So she has the potential
She's got, like, power.
to heal Earth.
Yeah. And there's also this thing where like if she's too close to this krypton bomb, when it goes off, it's going to kill all the nanites in her body, and so she'll get sick again and die.
Yep.
And so as our crew goes about, kind of taking her, like adopting her, as part of their family.
She's part of the crew now.
Yeah.
She's driving the ship.
They learn about this conspiracy, and
While they're trying to sell her back to the.
Yeah, while they're trying to get enough money to like do stuff, and all their past comes out, and it turns out like their past, their very past, they're all badasses.
Yeah.
that kind of like just found each other, and so they start fighting back against
And I think
the forces of this corporation.
all of their paths have crossed paths with this philanthropist guy at some point too.
Yeah, so Sullivan has a connection to each one of these guys, oddly enough. But at a certain point, they decide they figure out Sullivan's evil plan, which is basically he's going to blame this huge bomb explosion on a space station on Dorothy. And the explosion is going to cause the space station to crash into Earth and cause a cataclysmic event that's going to kill everyone left on Earth, forcing them all to move to Mars, where he can select who gets to survive, basically. So he's playing God.
Yeah.
And so once the Space Sweeper Victory crew finds this out, they decide that the only way that they can, save the day is to sacrifice themselves. And so they go on this run to try to get, Dorothy away from the shockwave of this bomb. They have to get like 5,000 kilometers away from the explosion.
And they get the help of all the other space sweepers, like in that vicinity, and it's so cool because there's like the French space sweepers, the German space sweepers. There's like all these different space sweepers. It's just really cool. They're just like, oh yes, we have to protect the good, and like the different like dubbing and the languages. It's just cool.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil the climax because I feel like people should watch this movie and experience it for themselves. But
The one time we don't spoil a movie.
Yeah. But I can say that like when the climax of this movie happened, I was genuinely surprised.
Me too.
And I was like, wow, that was a great twist. I dn't see it coming.
It's a smart misdirect.
Man,
I
you
thought.
know what?
Yeah.
I am so happy you guys like this movie because I was really kind of like a little worried about it because I've been you don't know, Danny. I've been bugging these guys for 6 months. It had become a thing. I was gonna get a T-shirt made. All right, it was really starting to piss me off,
Right?
Because it was turning into a meme that these guys weren't watching this movie just to annoy me. All right.
I will say it took me probably half the movie to get really invested in the movie.
No, it does.
The first half, I was kind of annoyed at Captain Jang for a while because I was like, what's her deal?
Yeah.
And then once it got to the point where they're no longer the unlikable like space riffraff, they like care about this girl, and they've decided like once we got to like there's more to the story, I was in.
That's how I was too, because like when I first watched this, I mean, you know me, I'm a very visual guy.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to entertain me. But I was really super impressed with the technologically eye experience, you know, the sensory experience of this movie. And it's awesome. But once you get into it, you get 30 minutes, 45 minutes into this thing, you start figuring out, it's like, man, there's like an actual story to this. And that's really hard to come by.
It's really got a lot of layers.
You either get one or the other now coming from the movie industry. So it's really cool to find a movie like this.
I'd say the first act of this movie is all about world building and setting up like what the situation is and what these people's lives are like. And then at the end of the third act is when they find Dorothy. And that's when we start getting deeper into like the character stuff, where we start discovering their backstories and stuff like that. And by the time we hit the third act, it's balls to the wall, like shit's happening, like it's crazy. So it starts off a little bit slow, and you know, it takes a while to kind of like understand who everyone is and what everything is and stuff like that. But the best kind of science fiction and fantasy stories do that world building and get it out of the way. So like by the time the third act comes around, you can just put the pedal to the metal. I want
to know if they're going to make more.
Yeah, I hope that they do.
A sequel has been announced.
Oh, nice.
So they are going to be making a second one. Yeah.
Right on.
So
when this movie ended, I got tears in my eyes. I was so into it.
Yeah. I never thought that my next big science fiction love would come from Korea.
Right?
It's weird, man. It's just like, why can't Hollywood make a big budget sci-fi movie like this?
Yeah.
You know, do I have to go to Bollywood to find my next big?
Because right now everything's all about, you know, and I'm guilty because I like them too, but it's all about the superhero stuff.
I'm tired. I'm tired of.
All right, so let me ask you guys, what was your favorite moment, and did you have any questions or things that confused you, Danny?
Oh yeah, okay.
We're gonna be here for a while. So, Danny walked in today talking about how confused Space Sweepers was.
So, all right. So again, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but did Dorothy have the power to, like, at the end where where kind of the swerve happens in the thing with the ship?
Yeah. So
Did she control those?
There's a scene in the movie where the Space Sweepers are trying to get away from being chased by the corporate drones. And they accidentally end up flying into this space debris cloud that's full of these nanites that can't be killed. And so their ship starts getting attacked by these nanites. It's just like covered with them. And they're convinced that they're going to die because there's just no way to get these things off the ship once they're on them. And the girl, you know, she's kind of like strapped in. She's got like a oxygen mask on, Dorothy. And she's like they told her, you know, count to like 100 or something like that, because they didn't want her to get scared when all these things were attacking them. And when she reaches 100 and she opens her eyes and she sees what's going on, the nanites inside of her connect with the nanites out in the cloud. And the nanites, instead of attacking the ship, they kind of become part of the ship. And so the Victory had these nanites on board from that point on. And Dorothy, because of the nanites in her blood, could command those nanites that were part of the ship.
Yeah.
So is that how you saw it? You saw it as her commanding it, or just the nanites naturally communicating with the other nanites or whatever?
No, like there are moments where like her eyes glow, and that's when she's communicating with other nanites.
Okay.
And that's when she's using the nanites in her blood to
like
do
when she was
stuff.
growing that tree that grew all the, what was it, tomatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, the tomatoes.
Which was another funny scene where like
That's my favorite.
Like they'd never had like fresh tomatoes before, and they're like selling them for like $1 each, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is the greatest thing they've tasted."
Like one guy was like, "This is good."
All of these people have been living on this like desolate planet where vegetation doesn't grow. Nothing grows on Earth anymore, and so they sell all of these tomatoes that they grew on the ship with Dorothy's nanobites, and all of these people are like, "Oh my fucking god, a tomato!" Like most of them were like, "I've never even had one before," and they just start eating it like an apple.
Yeah.
And then like Dorothy tries one. She's like, it's so bad.
Yeah, right.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
I think that's when I turned like when this became like a real movie for me. Like I was like getting into
That's
it and
kind of
like
when
investing in these characters.
when what's his name?
Tejo?
Tejo and Dorothy. That's when they kind of started to actually bond.
Yes.
When he dropped his little wall that he had up.
Yeah, and I think I needed for them to bond because I think at that point she had bonded with Bubs and she had bonded with Tiger Park, and I was still waiting for Tejo to get on board because he's our main character. And I think when that scene happened, that was like what I needed for me to like really invest in these characters.
Yeah.
It's like I said earlier. I was just happy that they took some time in this movie to give us all some moments with each crew member, with Dorothy, to build on the relationship that they had.
No, so you care. No, that's what
Yeah.
a
And
lot of
it's
movies
like,
miss.
There was
that.
some emotional investment in the characters. In
and
this
there's
movie.
like layers to it because there's always
Right.
something at stake too that increases the intensity of each scene.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was confused about, which Kadish, I think, kind of cleared up a little bit earlier, was I was kind of, I guess, I don't know, maybe I was smoking. I don't remember. Like, I
There's a
didn't
lot
gather
to this thing, Ed.
I didn't gather, like, I didn't realize he was reserved to the fact that his daughter was dead and he was just trying to recover her body.
Yeah.
I thought he was still trying to find her. And that's why with that scene at the end, or toward the end in that white room or whatever, I was just like, I had to rewind it and like rewatch. And I was like, okay, so this isn't real. And I was just like, so
Well, apparently there's some kind of like some thing where
can they
You
talk
can-
to the dead?
Yeah,
where
you can connect with the
where
consciousness.
they retain their consciousness deep inside them, or that's weird sci-fi.
Science.
You know,
Yeah,
whatever.
so this is one of those weird Korean things, I think, where they put this in the story and it makes sense to Korean audiences, but to us gaijin,
Us dumb American
yes,
brains.
like we're just kind of like, huh? So basically, Taeho's entire motivation is to basically find his dead daughter, find her body in space, and she's got like this tracker in her. Like I think everyone who lives up in the orbit has to have these trackers in case like they get blown out
For
from
this
space
exact
debris.
problem, yeah.
And so at the end of the movie, Dorothy is able to use the nanobots to connect to that sensor in his daughter before she gets out of range, because she's just been floating in space this whole time.
Basically, so he can say goodbye. And
Yeah,
put
so
everything to rest.
Dorothy connects Tejo to his daughter for one last time so that he can apologize to her, say goodbye, relieve this guilt that he has for not being there for her. And so it gives him one final goodbye. And then, the daughter officially dies. And Tejo now has the surrogate daughter in Dorothy because her father was killed throughout the course of the movie. And now they have like this kind of surrogate family. And I was kind of disappointed with the ending because I felt like it would have been more poignant if, the other ending had just been permanent. But I can also appreciate they want to do more sequels. And every character in the crew had like a complete character arc where they all had something they wanted to achieve. And by the end of the movie, they all got that. Which is the sign of a good story.
Yeah.
Vader, was there anything that confused you about this movie?
Confuse me?
Yeah.
No, not really. I don't think so.
Yeah. What about you, Jude?
I was able to keep up with it pretty good.
No, I think I was pretty much along for the ride.
Yeah. I mean, like Danny, there were a couple times where I was watching this and I was like, that's not very clear why they're doing that.
Like the space disease that the philanthropist has at one point, I was like, have we talked about that? Did I miss that part? And you were like, no. And I was like, all right, cool.
I didn't really care. It's like, oh, he's got some issues.
Well, it came up a couple of times, and I just thought maybe I had missed that part where they explained what that was.
I guess like
But
you
it didn't
guys were
really
calling it
matter.
the headcanon that he came up with. Was
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's the nanites.
Yeah,
was that how
because-
time was able to slow
because
down right
he's-
before the end?
He's like 158 or something years old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just assuming he's able to be that old because he's injecting himself with the bad nanites or whatever.
Right.
And those things, whenever he gets upset, he starts
Watch this movie and tell us
starts
your
like
take on
he
it.
starts like roid raging, and then his black veins come out and stuff. It's like, okay, whatever.
like what you're talking about, Danny. It wasn't that time slowed down. That was a stylistic thing where basically the filmmaker slowed the movie down so that we could see how the bad guy realizes what's happening.
Yeah, because he kept saying like I did everything right. And,
Yeah.
You know,
Because this whole time he thought he was the good guy.
yeah. Well, bad guys.
It was not only that, but like he couldn't believe that with all of his intelligence and resources that these janitors got the best of him.
Yeah.
At the end, which was so fulfilling. You know?
Yes.
They're not janitors; they're garbage.
Yeah, garbage men. But there's a great scene where basically like the bad guy, Richard Armitrage's character, Sullivan, he basically lays out all of our heroes. Like him and his crew come in and they like beat the crap out of them. And he gives Tejo the $2 million for Dorothy. And
$4 million.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right.
He doubled it.
He doubled it. And basically he gets Tejo to sell his soul and sell his pride in order to get this money.
The $500 bills.
yeah, right.
And it was kind of funny because like I was sitting there watching this. I was like, why doesn't he just kill them instead of giving them the money? Like it's weird that they're. And then like as he's leaving, they took a scene where he talks to like his enforcers, like his robo super soldiers, and he's like, make sure they don't leave because he's got this bomb on the station. He knows that they're going to die anyway, but he wants them to realize that how they're going to die.
He wants them to
die.
suffer first before he kills them.
Yeah,
He's a pretty good villain.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, so I was like, props to you for actually like taking the time to like explain the villain's evil plan for leaving them alive.
This is really good story writing.
Yeah. This was a good movie. Okay, so
You guys are making me happy right now.
so let's
Peter's
go.
gonna start crying.
I feel like I did a good thing.
You did. Good for you, V.
So let's go around, give it final rating and final thoughts. Danny, what are your final thoughts and what would you rate this?
I enjoyed the movie a lot. I'm glad to hear that they're going to make a sequel. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to recommend this to friends of mine that are into the same kind of thing. So yeah, I'd say it's a solid, at least a 4. I mean, a solid 4 for me.
Yeah, it's a high rating. Vader, what would you rate this? What are your final?
I would put this about the same, about like a 4. I'm happy to see some cool, well-written science fiction that I can get into. This is a fun movie.
Yeah. A good story, good characters.
It's a little Korean. I mean, there are some things in this movie that, as what would you call us, a gaijin? As an American, I'm kind of like, okay, well, that's a little weird, but there's not a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I kind of think it's neat. I appreciate that. I love this movie. I had a really good time with it. Solid 4 for me. I'm looking forward to the sequel. I hope it's good, and I hope they make a third one.
All right, Jude, final thoughts and rating.
I totally agree. I loved it. I highly recommend it. It's a little too long, but I get that they had to set up this whole new world. I don't like it when movies are over 2 hours, but hopefully the next one won't be. I'm definitely going to watch the next one. And for me, this is a 4 out of 5 nanobot tomatoes.
Wow,
Nice.
solid 4s.
4's all around.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with you guys. This is a 4-star movie.
Nice.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. That seems to be the theme with this week, where like I came in with very low expectations for each movie, and I was pleasantly surprised each time.
Which is weird because you're such a sci-fi guy.
And this is supposed to be shitty sci-fi week, right?
Yeah, I was like, maybe we should like rename it. But yeah, like this is definitely not a shitty movie. Like the production design on this movie is great. This movie was shot beautifully. The special effects are fantastic.
Yeah.
The acting
I don't
is
know
good.
if not bad space movies really zings like shitty space movies does.
Yeah.
But like I'm just impressed on every level with this movie. It's a very good movie, but it's also very Cowboy Bebop.
Mm-hmm.
If there are people out there who like Cowboy Bebop, they'll probably like this movie because it's basically the same thing. Oddly enough, so Netflix is the company that's producing the live action Cowboy Bebop. And John Cho is playing the main character in that movie, Sulu from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. And he suffered like a knee injury midway through production. So like they had to shut down production in order for him to recover. and then coronavirus happened, and so like
I was wondering what's the holdups.
yeah, they've been on an extended hiatus because of this, but I think they got something like half the season shot before they had to shut down.
Is it a series or a movie?
It's a series.
Okay, so like 12 episodes probably. Or
I think it might be 6 to 10.
Okay,
one of those two. So the Netflix version of Cowboy Bebop is going to be coming out sometime soon. But this is, if you haven't seen Cowboy Bebop and you watch this movie, this is the type of thing you can expect.
How many episodes are there?
I think in the anime there's like 21.
See, that's not.
I've only seen the movie, the Cowboy Bebop animated movie. I haven't seen the series.
You guys know I don't watch animation.
Yeah.
You're
probably
missing some good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
You'd probably want to watch the series before the movie, Danny. Just saying. All right, guys. So that was our discussion of shitty space movies. Hope
Turns out they
it.
weren't that shitty.
Yeah. It turns out they were all actually pretty enjoyable. So it's like bad pizza. There's no such thing as bad pizza.
I don't know.
That's not true.
That one movie.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars. That was the pineapple on a pizza right there for you.
Whoa.
You need to settle down.
You were in the wrong house for that, sir.
No kidding. I love pineapple on pizza. Yeah. It's good
It's
stuff.
no business. Bang on pizza.
Now all our comments are going to be.
That's going to be the only thing people
It's going to
think
be
about.
the only thing they talk about. Yeah.
My bad.
All right. Where can we find everyone on the socials, Vader, starting with you?
Oh, you can find me at MattVader74 on the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube, on this channel Saturday mornings around 10. I play some video games and other places. Just search my name. I'm out there.
All right. Jude, where can they find you?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok.
And Danny, the Dork Knight, where can people find you if they're so inclined?
Twitter at DorkKnightLV. That's 2 Ks in the middle.
Yeah, so it's not NIGHT, it's KNIGHT, right?
Correct. Yes.
And you can find me at Matthew Kadish, KADISH on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com will take you to my Amazon page. And as always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Leave us a thumbs up, like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving us a review. We'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, stay salty, my friends.